Hey, it's Irreverent Aegis here, and welcome to another installment of the two-man Vet Dungeon tanking series, where my heterosexual life partner Kyle and I two-man every single vet dungeon so that I can show you all the tanking mechanics you're expected to know, and all the extra things you might be responsible for if you stupidly queue up for a random vet dungeon solo style. With only 2 people in our group, we are simulating a bad pug experience so that you can better learn all the mechanics that good groups just burn right past. In this video, we'll be tackling Scrivener's Hall. Our first boss is Riftmaster Nacri. This boss is really just a copy and paste of Joe Goldberg from You. He loves books, and he murders people. Maybe this is actually just a crossover between You and ESO. We can call it ESOU. I'm pretty sure nobody would have an issue with that. This fight definitely has some unique mechanics. The first mechanic we'll discuss is the summon book mechanic. Glowing books are summoned around 85%, 55%, and 35%. The books send out 2 orbs to random places in the library arena, or the librarena as I'll call it from now on. As the tank, you don't really need to worry about these, but the DDs in your group, damage dealers, not the busts of sexy librarians, need to track down the books. They follow the trajectory of the orbs and interact with them on the walls. You can see on the right side of my screen there's a little glowing thing in the library. Once the DD interacts with it, it disappears. Once both are interacted with, the entire book disappears, as we'll see in a couple of seconds. When a book is out, an icon that is the color of the book will appear above the people in your group's heads at regular time intervals. After that appears, a glow person of the same color will be summoned. If the glow person is red, you should bash it when it appears to avoid damage. If the glow person is gold, you hold block. Joke's on you, gold, I'm a tank. And if the glow person is green, you roll dodge. If you do absolutely none of these things, you'll be fine. It's the other people in your group that need to do them, especially the DDs, since they'll be outside of healer range as they're out on their book scavenger hunt. Next up, let's discuss the booknados. Like everyone's favorite movie, Sharknado, a booknado is just a tornado with a twist. Yeah. But seriously, it's just a tornado made of books. It places an AoE on the ground and sends out AoEs in an outward spiral. Just stand there and take it like a tank, you'll be fine. But if you want to make it easier on your DDs and your healer, you can always walk the boss away from it, as the range on those AoE circles is very limited. So if you get away, then everyone will be safe, not just you. You can see right now we're in the green book phase, so as my DD is running around doing the mechanics, I want to point out that this is the phase where a green glow person appears, and this is the time when everyone should roll dodge when they get the notification on their screen. You can see it right here. Cool. The last important mechanic for the tank to know is the teleport and summon exploding book move that the boss is about to do. They'll teleport across the room, and there'll be an AoE circle that goes on the ground. As the tank, you need to go quickly over to it and stand inside of it before it blows up and kills your DDs. I totally did that as a learning opportunity for you, not because I forgot. A couple of minor notes that I wanted to mention. The boss does have a really slow wind-up for a heavy attack. You can just block this, but on hard mode, it does hit a lot harder, and let's pretend you're playing with a really bad healer. You may want to roll dodge it, so it might be a good idea to practice roll dodging it. Here you can see that teleport thing, and I can totally prove that I know what I'm doing by standing in this one, and nobody dies. Regarding the pair of ads that spawn during the fight, they're known as battle scribes. You can just chain them in and keep aggro if you feel like being useful and keeping them off of your DDs. They'll die in the cleave, and during scavenger hunt phase, there won't be extra damage hitting the people running around. Around 35%, the boss will summon his third and final book. We're getting red this time last, and with the red one, all you need to do is get the interrupt like I clearly do right here. Let's not talk about that. Oh, on the bright side, look, 3 in a row. Bam, everyone's alive. Now, I do want to point out that during a third book phase, most groups will just ignore the third book and will burn the boss down to 0, as it's a pretty easy execute. This is even true on hard mode. It saves you a lot of time to just ignore the third book mechanic entirely, outside of course, getting the block of roll dodge or bash. There's nothing much else to this fight, so let's speed things up a bit. Our second boss is Ozzezin the Inferno, and this fight is all about nostalgia, because we're going to play a game called The Floor is Hot Lava. Early in the fight, Ozzezin goes underground and summons a giant AoE lava pool. This happens throughout the fight, but it's one of its first few moves. Therefore, when you taunt it initially, get as close to the wall as possible like this. So, the lava pool is out of the way, as it stays on the arena for a very long time. Before that lava pool is placed, a growing AoE will appear on the ground, and everyone should jump up on the nearest piece of furniture to avoid the explosion and the subsequent lava. After spawning the lava pool, the boss will come up out of the ground on the opposite side of the arena. Shortly thereafter, it'll put a beam out that targets each player. Everyone should outrun or roll dodge this beam, especially that final tick, because it hits pretty hard. Throughout the fight, the boss will shoot out green larvae from its back, and a maximum of 2 of these larvae can spawn into an enemy, you see them right here, called Evolved Broodlings. If you want to avoid getting these, you technically can go step on the larva, literally just have someone in your group run over them. This is a big waste of time, and I don't recommend doing it on hard mode or on regular vet. If your DPS is passable, then the second time the boss burrows underground and summons a lava pool, he'll teleport to the center of the room. You'll see a massive AoE spreading out. Everyone needs to get to the outskirts of the arena, because the next thing the boss will do is suck everybody in. If you are too close, you'll get sucked into the center fire and die, so everyone needs to spread out to the outside of the room during that mechanic. What you're seeing here is a conal spew attack, where the boss spits on you and anyone near you. Face it away from the group and hold down block. Really, this is about positioning. If your DDs always line up on the side of the boss, then they won't get hit by the spew. Just don't turn it into them, unless they deserve it, of course. Honestly, there's not much else to this fight. It's mostly a DPS check, and the faster you burn it down, the less you need to worry about. So we're just going to speed through on 5 times until this fight is done. For our final boss, there are 3 separate rooms. The first room we fight Nacri, the giant spider. The most important mechanic here is learning about cookies. You can see that red cookie above my head. When one person gets that above their head, after a few seconds, a big AoE will spawn underneath them. This will not go away for the duration of the entire room, so it's important not to place these in compromising positions. On non-hard mode, this pretty much means don't stupidly stack them by the exit door. There's really only one other thing to look out for in room 1. The boss will, after a certain amount of time, rear up on its back legs like it's about to do a heavy attack. But instead of doing the heavy attack like you just saw, it's going to do this and become enraged. It'll start glowing a different shade of red. As soon as this happens, one of the NPCs will place a frost circle in a corner, and you simply just need to run over there and wait for Nacri to follow you into it and get frozen. This will end the enrage mechanic. Now, if you get hit by light attacks while blocking during the enrage mechanic, you'll take a lot of damage, but you probably won't die. I do not recommend, however, trying to block a heavy attack when the boss is enraged. Small spiders will appear throughout the fight. You don't even need to worry about taunting them, as I've never once seen them be a factor at all in the fight, on hard mode or on regular vet. They'll pretty much just walk into the group and die in the cleave, so you can effectively ignore them the entire time. When Nacri gets to 50%, everyone will need to get to the exit door, as the room will start filling up with fire, and then will explode, killing anybody who doesn't get through the door on time. So as the tank, as you approach 50%, just slowly start walking everyone over towards the door, and everything will be fine for the group. After you go through the door, don't stop to repair your gear or charge your weapons, because the fire will keep going until it fills up this entire hallway, and you'll probably ruin the run for your group. Definitely nobody has ever done that before. and especially not on hard mode. As soon as you aggro Valina, she's going to raise her arm up in the air and place big AoE circles around 2 people. It won't be the tank unless 2 people are dead, or you're 2-manning the dungeon. Once the AoE circles settle, the players will need to stay inside their circles until they go away. If they leave their circle prematurely, or if someone else enters their circle, it'll blow people up. The circles can be stacked, but the dot that occurs when you're in the circle will increase. So if you do stack the circles, make sure you have a healer properly positioned to get everyone heals. Just like the first room with the giant spider, one person in the group will get cookies while you're fighting Valina. These should be placed on the outsides and corners of the arena, or up the hill that led into the room. When you are in close proximity of Valina, she will use her most powerful attack, this fire beam that you can see here. It lasts for several seconds and does pretty big damage. If you have a good healer, you can probably just stand there and block and be lazy. If you don't, make sure you pop yourself heals or pop a damage shield. What's happening right now with cookies, a fire cage, and a beam is very unlikely to happen with a real 4-man group, because you won't get fire cages as the tank unless other people are dead. The last attack of note from Valina is when she puts her arms out to the side and lights everyone on fire. This puts a pretty strong burning dot on everybody. It can be healed through, so it's important that everyone is stacked up pretty tightly. Interestingly enough, the animation for the burning dot and for cookies, when she spreads her arms out like an airplane, is the same animation that the Shrouded Axeman from Shipwright's Regret does. So, is Valina the secret sister of the Shrouded Axeman? Find out on the next episode of Dragon Ball Z! At just under 60% boss health, Valina will disappear and Lamakai will reappear. Lamakai has the same attack patterns as she had in the first room. However, there are a couple of key differences. The first is the presence of the ensnaring spider, which will appear halfway between the entrance and exit along the side walls. The ensnaring spider will target the furthest person away from it, and will put them in webs and start dragging them over to it. As soon as the person reaches the spider, that person will die. So it's important that the DDs take down that spider as soon as it pops up. The best positioning for the fight is to have the 2 DDs stand near the center of the room at all times, and your healers stay either on the entrance ramp leading up to the room or by the exit door. That way you can guarantee that the healer is in range for all of the heals when needed, and is the furthest person away from the spider. The ensnaring spider will never target the tank, and obviously, since we're 2-manning this dungeon, our DD is going to die because he's going to be ensnared every time. That's why I have Insta-Res handy, so that I can resolve this, and as soon as he gets up, he can kill the ensnaring spider. Regarding the ice circles that you pull the boss into when it gets enraged, they can show up on the entrance ramp, near the exit, or in the 2 locations that the ensnaring spider appears. Where the frost circles spawn is not random. You as the tank can position the boss wherever you want in the room, and the frost circles will always go to the location that is furthest away from where the boss is standing. The only other difference between Room 1 and Room 2 Lamakai is that instead of getting cookies throughout the fight, you will get fire cages instead. So as the tank, just make sure that as you pull Lamakai into those frost circles, you don't run through anybody's fire cage, because you'll blow people up. At the end of the second room, Lamakai will be permanently dead, and once again we'll have to get to the exit door and exit before we all explode. In the final room, we'll be back to fighting Valina. Everything she did in Room 2 is still here in Room 3. There is one key difference, and that is that she will summon a meteor. This is the same visual as the meteors out of the Rock Grove trial. You can approach the meteors in one of 2 ways. Your DDs can destroy them, or they can ignore them. If you ignore them, you should have someone dedicated to giving out a block countdown, like 3, 2, 1 block. Because when the meteor explodes, it'll throw anyone not blocking off the cliff to their death. Or, if they're lucky, to a joining encounter in progress teleport screen, but that doesn't happen as much. While it doesn't take that long to destroy them, it does leave your DDs a little bit out of place, so when we have the fire dot or other dots going on, it can be hard for the healer to heal them. On hard mode, I recommend not actually attacking the meteors because the time on target on the boss will be dramatically reduced and the damage is a lot higher, so it's more important to stay in your stacks. So, in hard mode, block, in my opinion, is the better option. As a reminder, we still have fire cages, cookies, and the fire beam that comes out from Valina during this phase. It's really important to keep your cookies stacked on the outside of the room, that way they're just out of the way and everyone has free range to move where they want. Regarding positioning for the tank, it's best to stay on the outskirts of the arena and always send the fire beam to the same half of the room. That gives your DDs and healer room to maneuver on the opposite side of the room, where they'll never be in danger of getting hit by that beam. The last thing I want to go over is something that's far more important for the hard mode, but it's the same idea for regular vet. And that is the two attack patterns that Valina can take, ranged or melee. I haven't figured out if there's a way to control whether she decides to be more ranged or more melee. Currently it looks like it's kind of random, and it also appears to be established in the second room and carried through into the third room. Once she goes into it, she'll stick with that pattern until you wipe, from what I can tell so far. The ranged pattern is ideal, and you're lucky whenever you get this one, because she will always stay put and throw fireballs at you from a distance, which means she will never attack you with the fire beam, because that is based on proximity. So if you get this, just range taunt her, hit her with Elemental Drain for breach, and have a self-heal that isn't tied to attacking the boss like Vigor. The other attack pattern is the melee attack pattern, where she will constantly be running right up to you and beaming you over and over and over again, which makes it much harder, especially on the hard mode, as the damage ramps up dramatically there. You can see in this particular video that she is melee, as she keeps running right up to me and hitting me with constant beams. Your main strategy here is to stay as close as possible to the boss, and to get up to her as quickly as possible when she teleports across the room. That way you can control where she is, and she won't be running all over the place, which makes it easier for your group to maintain positioning and maintain good stacks to make it easy on the healer. That's pretty much it for the veteran guide to this dungeon, so let's watch on 3 times speed the rest of this fight, because I know if I were watching this on normal time, I'd be bored and I'd leave too. If you liked this video, feel free to hit the like button and leave a comment, and as usual, if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe to my channel. One more thing, something cool is about to happen, so I'd stick around for a few more seconds.